Welcome to the Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE. The goal of this podcast is to build, inspire, and to empower our listeners through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.simplybje.com/the Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Top of the day, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Lifeline. We're your hosts, life strategist and entrepreneur Bo Powell, social media influencer and owner of the for-real brand Lindsberg Petway, and yours truly, leadership consultant and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. You can visit us at www.simplybje.com/the Lifeline. Do us a favor, like and subscribe to our content on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and then share with a family member, a friend, or a coworker. Well, today I am super excited about this conversation. I am honored to have fellow Baltimore native, educator, artist, community organizer, and former NFL linebacker Aaron Maybin. In addition to being a husband and a father, he is the founder of the Hilton Recreation Center in West Baltimore. We are excited about this conversation today. Mr. Maybin, Mr. Aaron, good morning, sir. How are you today?
Blessed, black, and highly favored. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Barry, I don't think you said that right. I thought it was Baltimore.
No, we're not doing this today.
That's what we say here in Detroit.
Oh, man. It's always the ones from the D that got all the jokes for a cast from Baltimore.
Exactly.
But we ain't going to talk about y'all accents right now.
You got it, right?
Keep it PC.
The wire put us up on y'all.
So before we dive into the conversation, we're going to do a little game of rapid fire. So Pete, take it away, man.
Yes, sir. So this rapid fire is real quick. I'm going to give you a couple different options and you tell me. Ravens or Commanders?
Ravens.
Okay. Jordan or LeBron?
LeBron.
Wait, the interview's over. He could go.
I'm going Team Bron, baby.
Team Bron. Okay, respect. All right. What's your favorite movie? All time. You can watch any time.
That's a good one.
What's your favorite movie?
All time.
Give me
I'm such a movie buff. That's a hard one for me to answer. Oh man.
Give me three.
All right, three.
Top three.
Okay. We'll go with one. My favorite sports movie of all time. We'll go with Any Given Sunday.
Yeah.
In terms of old school film that I used to watch growing up, I was a big fan of Goodfellas.
Okay.
And, in terms of today, something a little bit more modern, we'll go with not going to go with too much recency bias and say Sinners. Let's go with Black Panther.
Okay.
Good one. Sinners was good too, though. Now
it was.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love, as much as I loved it, I can't put it up on my tier of favorites of all time, but I really I'm a huge fan of Ryan Coogler's work, artistically and just in terms of narrative and the way that he incorporates the stories of the diaspora into his projects. Man, he's really a master at that. He's taken what people like Spike have been able to do over the years and really just elevated that perspective and being able to bring it to the mainstream in a way that Spike was really prevented from largely in his career. Right. So I'm a big fan of his work.
You talk like a son of Bishop Saunders Sr. Scholar all day long.
Apple doesn't fall too far, man.
No, it doesn't, man. No, it doesn't. So let's hop into this conversation. So there are a lot of current events that we could talk about, beginning with your president to politics in Baltimore. But I want to kind of focus on one thing. Of course, as a African-American man and you're in the community, you're in the trenches, there is a high level of African-American men who have thought about suicide or committing suicide, right? And so recently, about the Dallas Cowboy, Meshawn Nealon. He's among the most recent of those. So tell us your thoughts about that particular crisis at large and tell us your thoughts about Meshawn Nealon.
Yeah, man. This was something that for me personally was very heavy. for multiple reasons, and I want to try to be thoughtful with how I speak on this, because obviously, you know, we're still finding out details about his passing. You know what I mean? And I understand that there were so many people that loved him and so many people that are grieving right now after his passing that I definitely don't want to get into too much conjecture with things that we don't know for a fact, but I want to stick with the things that we do know.
Yeah.
One, we know that this brother was struggling with mental health issues. You know, people in his family, people that loved him have, you know, spoken since his passing about some of those struggles. And it's always painful for me to see the public discourse that follows the death of one of our brothers. And I say one of our brothers because I didn't know him personally, but as a former NFL player, as a member of this fraternity and bond that we hold so dear, he was family. He was one of us. And having been there, you know what I mean, with my career myself, you know what I mean, first round draft pick, somebody that played in the league for some time, went through a lot of ups and downs, went through a lot of public instances of not responding well to critique and the narrative and having certain things weigh on you.
Right.
It really breaks my heart that he is no longer with us, because I can remember, I tell people all the time, the most unhappy I've ever been, the most depressed I have ever been was during the time that I was making the most money I had ever made in my life, was during the time that I
Wow.
was more famous than I had ever been in my life. You know,
Wow.
when people look at athletes, they see superheroes, they see a lot of things, but what they rarely see is a human being. They see a product, they see a commodity, they see an object, they see a thing. Um, Very similar to at other points in time in history where people didn't see us as human beings, they see us as a product to be commodified. I
Chattel.
don't think that we realize as a society how much we still participate in that today, and how we dehumanize our own brothers and sisters based on what we perceive as the privilege of their existence.
Can I ask
And
you a
a lot of
question?
us, yeah, go ahead.
So, and forgive me for interrupting you, but I've for I think since I saw Django, which is one of my favorite movies, right? Since I saw Django and that whole concept of the Mandingo, and I thought about how I believe that to some degree mainstream America sees athletes as the modern day Mandingo.
Mm.
Absolutely. The modern day Mandingo, the modern day gladiators, the
The $40
canaries in the coal
million
mine,
slave.
so to speak, huh?
The $40 million slave. It was a book
Yeah,
that.
that book was the first book that my agent gave me before
Right.
I was drafted. And I swear reading that book changed my whole outlook on um my life and position as an athlete. You know, it forced me to reevaluate um the way I had been socialized to view myself, and the way I had been socialized to perceive success until that point in life. So yes,
Wow.
there's a lot that's a whole sermon in and of itself. That's a whole, you know,
Man.
conversation. But um taking it back to our original point, most people can only see the positive elements of um being a professional athlete. They see the money, they see access to privilege, you know, access to opulence, wealth, women, all of these different things, and you would think, man, like these guys have to be the happiest people in the world. But a lot of times it's quite the contrary. Most of us as athletes on that stage, we deal with depression. A lot of us deal with severe cases of anxiety. A lot of us have real issues around our self-worth that we've never really unpacked and really digested in a real way. Um, and we're socialized to see ourselves as product, as commodity, um,
As a brand.
as a brand. but you don't give yourself the grace of feeling like you can feeling like you can be anything but okay. You know what I mean? We socialize ourselves to be so hard, and we don't realize how that pressure bursts pipes. And rather than mentally, emotionally, and spiritually diving into some of those traumas and figuring out, what the missing piece is, a lot of times we'll self-medicate, a lot of times we'll isolate, a lot of times we'll withdraw, and all of those things will be to our own detriment. And I can remember me personally, when I was at the lowest point that I've ever been at, I actually reached out to certain people that I saw myself being close to, but more than anything, that were more dug into like the mental health and emotional wellness space than I was. And I was asking for help in a roundabout way, not directly, but really just looking for answers. And I didn't get any assistance. I didn't get any help. I got more of the same, toughen up, you're going to be okay. Like all, it's not that bad, but, we have a saying, me and some of the brothers that I do a weekly Bible study with, not that bad is bad. You know what I mean? Like, and I can remember the feeling of not just isolation, but desperation, and saying, man, if I'm reaching out to the people I know that are plugged in with therapists and that, know more about mental health and that have a better language for these experiences than I do, and I can't get help from them, then what's the purpose of even trying? Like, who is out here that what space out here is for me? You know what I mean? And thank God I had certain people that were around me that, letters behind their name or not, made a space for me to be expressive and made a space for me to be vulnerable and open about what those struggles were. Because who knows where I would be or if I would still be here if I didn't have that outlet. So when I think of, this situation that just transpired, and I think about the fact of, yeah, you can be in a relationship with a woman, you can be, in a family that loves you, you can, play for what people consider America's team to be. This man just had his first career touchdown the week before he passed away. So you would think he would be on an all-time high during this time, but the masks we wear shield people from what we're really going through and experiencing most of the time. And, it breaks my heart that he wasn't able to get a lifeline, that he didn't have anybody around him that just were able to wrap their arms around him at that time and tell him that they were there for him, that that life gets better, that the struggle doesn't ever end, but you grow in ways as a man that allows you to better navigate that space and deal with things in a more constructive way. He was so young.
Yeah.
So young. That's what really breaks my heart about it, because I tell people all the time when they ask me about why I transitioned when I did and what that meant to me, and I would tell people, regardless of what I've accomplished, if I were to drop dead right now, and the best thing that you could say about me is that I was a damn good football player, then man, I've wasted a lot of time in life.
Right.
And he hadn't even gotten to the point in life where he figured out what God put him here to do. You know what I mean? Whose lives he was supposed to touch. Like, he wasn't just a football player. You know what I mean? Like, that was somebody's son, that was somebody's lover, that was somebody's friend, that was somebody's father. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And we lose. The world loses when we as Black men are no longer here. When we take ourselves off the board, there's so many other people that have to pay the consequence for that, because there are people whose lives we're supposed to touch, impact, change, and improve. So I could talk about this forever, but no, my heart goes out to his family. Um, I'm really hurt by this situation, and my hope is that people start to realize that people in these positions are going through the exact same thing that you would be things that we go through on a day-to-day basis. Money is not a shield from these things, and just because somebody is at a level that you would consider to be amazing and successful and all of that doesn't mean that they're not still struggling with their own demons. And we need to find a way as a society and a culture to do a better job of wrapping our arms around people rather than allowing them to isolate themselves.
Right. Aaron, you made some great points there. There's so much I wanted to pull out. But the first thing is that I think you said that society doesn't view athletes as sometimes as human. They view them as a commodity or thing, especially with this new thing with fantasy football, this new sports betting. I was just listening to some of my coworkers telling me their spread of what they had going on last night, and they needed this player to score so many points to win. And when you do that, you take away the human perspective of it. You made another great point about he's a person, not just a football player. Football is what you do. It doesn't mean that I'm a football player because
Yeah.
there's so much more to you. Mishan, wow, that was a very traumatic blow to a lot of people based upon the result of it. But like you said, digging deep and really looking at the person is what society has to do. Another pretty famous football players in the news, Antonio Brown, is facing some serious charges. Um, how do we avoid these pitfalls for professional athletes? In my opinion, this is just me. I had a couple concussions in my head in my time, but I think after that hit he took in Cincinnati, and I don't know him, it's just publicly, you can start to see the changes in his behavior. What do you think about that?
Um, the same way I think that the same thing I said a few minutes ago stands in this case too. I think that with AB, because AB is still alive, a lot of people are much more comfortable dogpiling on him and making him the butt of a lot of jokes that honestly have never been funny.
Right.
Um, I want to put this in context for a lot of your viewers. What we know now about CTE, head trauma, concussions, and everything else is very new information. Growing up, this information was not available to us. And I can be very honest in saying I can't be sure if I knew what I know today about the game that I would have played. Um, I'm approaching the age now where I've seen way too many of my own brothers that are not that old, um, either experience life altering events or slowly you begin to watch them deteriorate from the strong men that you knew into something that you almost don't even recognize. And I think that there is a apathy and really a jealousy and a anger that some folks have towards athletes because they're the ones that made it. You know what I mean? You made all this money. You knew the risk going in. No, we didn't. Dr. Ramalu's research about CTE wasn't made public until I was already in college. And it wasn't something that became more mainstream until I was already a rookie in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like, and think about that. Like, think about being 20, 21 years old and then finding out, oh, out of 100 people that play this sport, about 95 of them are going to have this disease that causes your entire psyche to erode from the, you know what I mean? Like, think about my fear and apprehension about being at the age now where I'm literally known for and valued for what's in my mind. And that's the one thing that I have to be most worried about losing at some point. Even myself, I played football from the age of 5 years old until I was 22.
Mm.
No, 20, 24. So I think that when we look at AB, a lot of people see the antics and they see somebody that, you know, should have known better or should have done better. And in many cases, I agree, but we're agreeing based on a rationale that we don't know for a fact that he even possesses anymore.
Right.
And the fact that he jokes so much about having CTE, the fact that he's adopted it into his brand so much so at this point in time that you know it's what is it, CTESPN, and the brand that he's created kind of around that, that it's become a running joke for some folks, where I've never looked at it like that. I think that that brother is in pain. I think that he is dealing with a lot of um, mental, emotional, and psychological issues that he doesn't have a language for how to deal with. And I very much believe that he's not surrounded with individuals that care about his physical, emotional, or spiritual well-being. And as long as you're willing to pay for the party, you're never going to have a shortage of people around that are telling you what you want to hear.
Mhm.
But I worry for the brother,
Right.
and
Wow.
yeah, it bothers me, the social discourse that we have around these instances, because God forbid something happens to AB, a lot of the people that you see cracking jokes on him are going to be shedding crocodile tears and talking about how sad that was, but they're doing nothing to try to help him at this point.
Wow. I was going to ask you a question about passion, but I want to change that question. I really want to ask you this question because this is something that I've been thinking about lately as I've watched a lot of our pro athletes spiral out of control. Do you think, or what are your thoughts about the lack of emotional and mental preparation that um, goes into, that doesn't happen, I should say, when they're thrust into the limelight, they're thrust into the millions of dollars, they're thrust into these teams, this new world? What do you think about the lack of, or maybe is there a lack of
I
emotional?
don't think there's a lack, there's
Okay,
not a lack of mental prep. Football players are some of the most intelligent individuals alive. If
okay,
I were to explain, if I were to explain the concept, the defensive concepts that we have to know and operate under at that level to the average human being, or to even a PhD student, they would have no idea what I'm talking. You know what I'm saying? Like,
hmm,
it takes years of education, socialization, and other things for us to become as proficient as we are with what we know. I think that the question is really, like, I reject the premise of that question. I think that the question should be, what are we preparing and equipping our guys with in terms of their mental? You know what I
so I
mean?
think I'm,
Like,
I think I'm,
because
I think I confused you. What I was really asking, so is there really, do people like prepare the athletes? Like, are there like, what I'm really speaking about, like psychologists and things like that, are there psychologists and things like that in place to prepare them for that new world?
athletically, yes,
Okay,
but athletically and socially are two completely different things.
got you.
And I would add that it doesn't benefit the NFL's product on the field, to equip guys with certain skills off of the field,
Wow.
because it changes. If you've got a crash out that is willing to run through a brick wall, what sense does it make to
Wow.
teach him how that's actually a self-destructive mentality?
Right.
You
Wow.
want that guy, you want that guy to be the pit bull without the chain on. You know what I
Wow.
mean? So
Wow.
they teach you how to know the game. They teach you how to regulate yourself on the field. But stepping off of the field, taking the helmet off, that's where the preparation usually stops. They don't prepare
Yikes.
you for life.
That's
They
the
don't
part.
prepare you for what it means to be a man. They
Right.
prepare you for being the best product on the field that you can be. So
Hmm.
much so that they minimize or straight up ignore elements of your character and personality that will clearly be destructive
Once you get
post your career, as long as it contributes to a better product to be conceptualized on the field.
Man, man.
I say it like this: we know the ratio of how many players go broke after retiring from the league. At what point have you ever seen the league or colleges or anything be proactive about teaching guys about finance, about money, about business, about, you know what I'm saying? Like if you know that players struggle heavily with mental health and emotional wellness, why is that not the same way we send our guys to trainers during the off season from the set? You got elementary school kids that are doing these type of, you know, personalized workouts and development. When are you ever sitting that person in front of a psychologist or a therapist and asking them to understand themselves and how they think, how they move, how they make, why they make some of the decisions that they make? You know what I mean? Like we don't pay attention to that element of their development. And I believe it's because it doesn't translate towards something that people can commodify.
Benefit off of. Yeah, yeah. So it's up to the player in his individual camp to put those things in place.
Absolutely.
Be successful. And I think with the narrative of mental health, are more players doing it now? Based upon your retirement at such an early age, you were definitely at 24, still in your prime. There's some cats still in college trying to get to where you were. And we definitely know you move in purpose. And you kind of hit on this. What was the rationale or the reason why you left the NFL?
It was several converging factors. One, I realized that I had gotten to a fork in the road where, I'll say it like this. When I grew up, I always saw myself making it to the NFL. And when you grow up, you have a lot of stories in your mind that you create around your future. So in my mind, I'm going to play in the NFL for about 10 years. You know, I'm going to get a Super Bowl or two, you know, however many Pro Bowls, you know, my career is going to go a certain way. And I realized at a certain point that if I wanted to have the athletic success that I saw for myself, if I wanted to be that perennial Pro Bowler, if I wanted to be able to have that decade-long career, all of that, I was going to have to take a step back from the things I was doing off the field. And I realized also that if I really wanted to have the kind of impact in my community that I saw myself having long term, then football was no longer something that, you know what I mean, I was going to be able to do and put full-time energy into what I was doing in my community. And again, I got to that point where I had to ask myself, if everything was to end right now, what would football matter? You know what I mean? Is that your legacy? I never saw football as my legacy. You know, it's been a tool. It's allowed me to do some great things. I was able to retire my parents. I was able to relocate them, you know, down south so that, you know, they could pursue their dreams. I was able to change the trajectory of my siblings' future by being able to provide college, you know, for them. I was able to establish a home base for myself here in Baltimore, and I was able to have money and resources to pour into my community. You know, I'm forever grateful to the game for that. But I never saw the game as my be all end all. You know? And for me, I had just been released by the Cincinnati Bengals. I came back home. At that time, my son was less than a year old, I feel like. And I'm sitting there, I'm playing with him. I wake up and I'm supposed to fly to Indianapolis and then Tennessee. I'm supposed to visit about 4 teams to figure out what my next landing spot is going to be. My agent had already set up the trip, and I was supposed to fly out and make my decision and sign my contract and move to whatever that new city was going to be. And I'm sitting there playing with my son that morning, and I'm getting my bags packed. And I got emotional to the point where I was in tears. And I realized that for like that week and a half time span that I had been at the house, that's the first time that I had had the freedom to really like spend time with my son.
Wow.
That was the first time that I had space to be in my house in silence and do nothing. You know what I mean? That was the first time that I ever didn't feel like the product, and I was actually like a human being. And I thought about what it would take from me to relocate to a completely new city after I had just, you know what I mean? I had just relocated to Cincinnati after New York, and I'm thinking, you know, this is the next spot. You know, Marvin Lewis had told me some amazing things about what he wanted to do with me, blah, blah, blah. And that falls apart. You know, they signed James Harrison, you know, to my exact same position at that time, you know, so the writing's on the wall, and they released me, and I realized I'm about to have to do this again in another city. You know what I mean? And if it doesn't work, then you go to another city and another city. And I realized that I was good enough, you know, during my time in New York, I realized that I was as good as I thought I was, but I needed the right scheme and the right, to be put in the right position to have the kind of success that I wanted to have. And I had to ask myself, like, is it this important to you for you to prove to everybody that you are who you know you are? When you know your heart is here, when you know that the time that you spend here in Baltimore doing your work in the off season is the happiest that you are all year. You know, I know that God is calling me to do something in this lane, but I'm never going to be as good on the field or as great in my community as long as I'm playing the 50, as long as I'm on both sides of the fence. You got to pick a direction, you know, and that was what led to me making the transition.
Wow, that's purpose, because such a young man, you would think that, look, I got a little more time. Let me do it 2, 3 more years, stack some more money, then
Oh,
make
everybody thought I was crazy.
right.
I wish I had recorded the conversation with my parents when I told them that I was retiring.
Wow. Yeah.
And you got to understand, it's like I've already retired them.
Right.
I've moved them down south. I built them you know what I mean? Built them an immaculate house, bunch of land, all that. I've already become, you know, in a way, a provider for my, you know, siblings and all. Like, how are you going to keep this going?
Yeah.
How are you going to pay for, you know, all of this stuff? Like, how are you going to survive? You going to sell art?
Right.
You know what I mean? You
Right.
going to do philanthropy? Like, you're setting yourself up for failure. But I just didn't see that. And I think that what's the beautiful thing about it is it's only been like the past 3-4 years that folks that were in my circle at that time are able to say that they now see the vision. I thought you were I thought you had lost your mind when you walked away from the game. But like now I understand. Like I see what you saw. You know, and that's okay. Like I tell people all the time, you know, like when you tell people the vision for your life that God has put in your heart, it should sound crazy to most people because God didn't give them the vision.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? He didn't give you the skill set. He didn't give you the creative imagination to understand how things could be different than they are right now. And sometimes you have to go out there and create it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a tough transition because everybody thought kind of I had lost my mind. They thought I was on some AB stuff. They were like, you know, the same way they look at him and joke on, like they made those same jokes about me.
Wow.
But I understood, as you said, my purpose was something different, and that was okay. I was willing to be the fool in the short term so that in the long term I could do the real work that God had put in my heart to do.
Now the $1,000,000 question: what did your wife say?
I wasn't married. I just got married last year.
Okay.
So I was single that entire time.
Okay.
Well, not single. You know, I was
Right,
young
right.
bachelor playing up the field. You know what I mean? But to your point, you know, my children's moms, like they one was supportive, one was more so where my family was like, you done lost your mind, like this doesn't make any sense, all of that kind of stuff. But I'm blessed to have a beautiful village around me, and that I am the head of. So you know, I have a support system. I have people that love me. I have folks that believe in me. But at the end of the day, it's still on me. You know, I have to go out there and I have to create this life that I say is possible. I have to bring these resources to bear and allow my fruit to speak for itself.
Right, right. I mean, you're a true example of using sports as a tool, as a vehicle to get you through high school, college, to the pros, to get you the capital to make the difference and still walk in the purpose that God has given you. And a lot of ball players, such as myself, I had aspirations to go to the NFL, had my own plan, but God put me in a head-on car collision and changed all of that, and it put me in a position where I am today. So, congratulations to you. Applause. I appreciate your life. Your story is very inspirational, and I'm looking forward to all the work you're going to do in the future.
I appreciate that. Thank you, brother.
I'm like kind of floored. I'm floored, man. I'm floored by how grounded you are. Because quite frankly speaking, um, coming from Baltimore, there's not a lot of that, quite frankly. You know, and I'm not speaking of as an outsider. I'm talking about somebody that grew up in West Baltimore, then moved to Baltimore County. But so I know when I have family members that this is not their mindset. So the fact that you have that type of mentality is mind-blowing to me. And as you were talking, I thought about two people. I thought about Myron Rolle and how I think he
My
was in
frat
the
brother.
NFL. Yeah, that's your frat brother. Okay. I think he was in the
Sir.
NFL for 4 years and he left
Mm-hmm.
and
But
went.
before he was in the NFL, he was at Oxford. He was a
That's
Rhodes
right.
Scholar.
That's
Me
right.
and Myron got recruited. Me and Myron were a part of the same recruiting class.
Wow.
So we were being recruited to a lot of the same schools. So we knew each other. I was trying to get him at Penn State, but he ended up at Florida State.
Wow.
But yeah, we've kept in touch over the years, and he's somebody that I have a great amount of pride for and respect for because of the boldness with which he's
Yeah.
gone about chasing his dream. You know, we're both very similar in the fact that we never saw ourselves as the one-dimensional athletes that everybody saw us as. You
Yeah.
know, really to our detriment on the field because he dared to see a bigger life for himself in medicine than he did
Yeah.
as an athlete, and the same for me as an artist and a community organizer. And you know, in the NFL, it's very much so a how dare you be that ambitious? How
Right.
dare you not be grateful for this opportunity? You know what I mean? That we've given you. But again, if that's all you are,
Yeah.
then fine. But I don't believe that is the narrative of 90% of the guys that are playing this game. I think that we allow society to convince us that that is all that there is for us at a
Yeah.
certain amount of time and at a certain point in time. And
Yeah.
we stop being curious. We stop
Mm.
being intellectually curious. We stop being lifelong students and we tell ourselves that this is my lane. But the average career lasts 2.5 years in this sport. It's a violent sport. So
Right.
not only is your career going to be short, but you're going to leave this game different than you come into it. You're not going to get out of it unscarred, you know. And thankfully, I only had one surgery physically, you know, my entire career. But I've got broken fingers, you know, I tore my pectoral dag near off the bone, never got surgery on it. Like, you know, I got, you know, some back issues, and I'm 10 times farther ahead than most guys that played. Like, I don't have any chronic
Pain.
injuries. I still, you know, I'm still in the gym every morning getting to it. And certain people think I can still step on the field if I needed to. I'm trying to, like, look, these are show muscles now. These ain't
Right.
like
Wow. That's amazing, man. I'm really because I was when I found out about Myron Rowe, I was impressed. I was like, man, that's crazy. He left football, and I don't mean crazy in a bad way, I mean in a good way. He left football to pursue a career in neuro. He's a neurosurgeon, right?
yeah,
That
he's a neuroscientist. Yeah.
that's incredible to me. Like I was like, man, this changes the game because it shows young black boys that you can be multidimensional. So I was impressed by that. The other person that you made me think about was Chris Bosh. So, after Chris Bosh's last injury, he had to leave the game. But Chris was so grounded that basketball didn't define who he was. He had an
Right.
identity outside of basketball, which said to me that he was able to control his own narrative. He didn't allow the NBA or the lack of that opportunity anymore to define who he was. He controlled his narrative. And so, as you were talking, the thing that stuck out to me is that you controlled your own narrative. You didn't let
Yeah.
the
I mean,
NFL.
I grew up idolizing guys. Obviously, I love the Allen Iversons of the world. I love the Rebels. I love Michael Vick, and I was a huge fan of Ray Lewis coming up.
Yeah.
Lawrence Taylor, all of the greats. But I also was a huge fan of Paul Robeson. I
Hmm.
also was a huge fan of Ernie Barnes, which
Right.
most people don't know that Ernie Barnes played professional football as well before he became the artist that gave us the art from Good Times. And
Right.
you know what I
Right.
mean? Like he played for the Redskins. I
Wow.
still am in touch with his son and his family. And also the first school that I ever attended was founded by a guy named Wes Unseld, who played for the Baltimore Bullets. You know what I mean? Like, so I grew up being educated in a school that a black man that was an athlete created because he understood the importance of using that position of influence and the resources that came along with it to sow into community. You know
Right.
what I mean? So who would I be to make it where I made it and not do the exact same thing?
Man.
And looking specifically at Paul Robeson's career, most people don't even know that he was a football player because of the amazing accomplishments that he made as an artist and as a political organizer and as a public speaker and a change agent during the McCarthy era. Like
Right.
people think cancel culture is crazy right now. My heroes survived the McCarthy era and never compromised their integrity. So who would
Wow.
I be to be out here half stepping and half talking on these issues that we know for a fact have real ramifications in our community? Those are my North Stars. And I started to ask myself, if I'm a young player today, who are those guys? You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like people need to be able to look at contemporary examples of what that kind of boldness looks like. We can't keep on talking about Paul Robeson and John Carlos and Tommy Smith and all of these guys from generations ago. We need Colin Kaepernicks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We need myself. You need people that are bold and that are unapologetic about these stances to show examples of what it looks like to be willing to lay things on the line for something that matters.
Wow.
Wow.
That's powerful. P, I know
Wow.
you got something to say before we close. I know you.
No, no.
You.
I mean, I'll save it for the next show, man. It's great points, man. And like I said, I was very excited for this particular episode.
I know. He's a football junkie, man.
Greatest
Football.
sport ever been played.
Indeed.
Yes.
So before we go, Aaron, just tell for people, because you're a man that's all about purpose, evidently, right? So what would you tell, or what do you think is most important to teach a person or people about purpose?
Mm. Purpose is often going to be different for you than other people will perceive it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like growing up, a lot of people would put purpose on me that I didn't ask for, based on, you know what I mean, me being
Yeah.
talented in certain areas, based on me being gifted in certain areas. And a lot of times we don't realize how much folks within community or even in our own families will try to live their lives vicariously through you
Yeah.
and put desires, goals, and aspirations on you that you never had for yourself. And I
Yeah.
think that it's important, especially as Black men, that we let go of this belief system that we are only our utility or our performance for others. You know what
Mm.
I mean? We only look
Wow.
at ourselves through the lens of what we can do, what we can provide, what, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that that is part of what's killing us. the fact that we can't be all the way human, the fact that we don't feel as though we can feel things and express things without judgment or condemnation. It forces the curious mind to become much more reserved. Like I say all the time, like Black boys, when they're boys, are some of the most expressive, imaginative, and joyful individuals in the world, and we kill that every single day. We kill that in them until by the time they're teenagers, they start to morph into something that we don't even recognize anymore. And then we wonder where these toxic traits and components surface from later in life, when we actually planted the seeds for them ourselves in their childhood. So I think that we have to challenge ourselves to do better by our young people, specifically by our boys, because, and obviously our girls have a whole lot that they deal with, you know, in terms of living through patriarchal, sexist societies that, you know, that they're growing up in. But a lot of the time they are given the grace of being able to experience the whole gambit of human emotion.
True.
They're given the grace of being able to not be perfect and figure it out as they go. But with our boys, and I think that it comes from an innate fear of, if we don't do it to them, then the world is going to kill them for it. But we allow our fear for our children, you know what I mean, to cause us to kill those elements, to kill the best elements of them before they have a chance to really become those things. So I would say that when you're looking at your purpose, don't disguise your purpose through the lens of what everybody else wants. Be bold enough to learn yourself and to figure out what you want out of life, and be courageous enough to chase after it unapologetically and audaciously.
That's powerful. Before we go, tell our viewers and our listeners where they can find you, where they can find your art.
You type in Aaron Maybin art on any of your social media platforms, I will come up. We are finishing up a revamp of my website, which should be back live for Cyber Monday coming up December 1st. So you can look up aaronmaybin.com and learn a little bit more about what we're doing in the community, see some of the upcoming exhibits and social workshops that I have going on in Baltimore and beyond. So
awesome, man.
I appreciate you guys having me on today.
Man, it's been a privilege. This conversation has been loaded. So this concludes another episode of the season 4 of The Lifeline with your host, yours truly, Barry J. Elliott, Lindsberg Petway, and Bo Powell. Don't forget to check us out at simplybje.com/The Lifeline and subscribe and like us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Feel free to email us and show us some love at the Lifeline Podcast TV at gmail.com. And remember, we're on a mission. We want to bring light and life to your household. So join us, because it's all about you here on The Lifeline. Y'all take care. God bless. Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business expert, and life coach Bo Powell, social media influencer and entrepreneur Lindsberg Petway, and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on The Lifeline. God bless.